Helmets Off, brought to you by WCF Insurance, is now on, and so is gambling on sports teams everywhere. You can do it everywhere. At least the Supreme Court said that the states have the right to decide whether you can do it or not. Well, right now, there's only 2 states in the United States of America that actually do not have any form of gambling. Utah, which is where I live, and Hawaii. I think it's odd company that these 2 are together. Anyways, the Supreme Court, in a rather, I don't know if it's stunning, but it's certainly, it's going to open up the floodgates for legalized sports betting like nobody's business. Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and actually a significant contributor to Sports Radar, we'll talk about that in a minute, says if you own a sports franchise, your franchise has now doubled. I think he's right. I really do. This gambling thing, this sports gambling is already a huge deal. It's going to be an even bigger deal. And it begs to question a few interesting things. One is, are the leagues and are the teams going to get involved? And I've talked about this before on Helmets Off about teams trying to actually get a cut of legalized sports gambling. They said, look, we've built up this brand, we have a name, and we want to get some compensation for you actually profiting on our brand and on what we've built up. Certainly, they have a legal case for that, and it makes a lot of sense. The question is, if they get a cut of, so they're not going to get a cut of like who actually won. It's just a cut of all of the bets placed on their sport, or maybe it's their team. I don't know how they would divide it up. And it seems like it's a probable thing that would happen. It still hasn't, but it's certainly something that could happen. But then you start getting these teams to profit from this gambling. And you start saying, well, what if a player now tries to compromise the actual outcome of game? Because, players, because it's legal, could actually bet on the game. And then they could, who knows, they could actually try to alter the game. The one thing that does deter this from both the players and an official, they all get paid a lot. So they're going to have to get a lot of money to throw a game. Because why would you want to feed, to kind of bite the hand that feeds you, so to speak, especially with all these players. Quarterbacks are going to make $30 million a year, and they're probably the most likely source of throwing a game. So that's not going to happen. I'll tell you where it's going to happen, though. It's going to happen in the NCAA. Mark my words, somebody who's not getting paid very much, and they start to see that this big sports corporation of college athletics, which makes billions of dollars a year, is now going to make, who knows, more billions of dollars a year, is actually going to have many players are going to say, wait, the $400 I get a month and I could throw a game and get a couple of grand a week, it's going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. So there's going to be some unintended consequences from this. It's also going to be interesting to see how many how many states actually change their laws or incorporate their laws. And it'll be interesting to see if the state of Utah, where I live, and Hawaii succumb to the temptation. Not likely in Utah. I live here. It's not going to happen. And by the way, I am not a gambler. I'm just not. I wouldn't gamble. I don't like to go to Las Vegas and gamble, so I'm not a proponent of gambling. But this is certainly a perplexing development in our country in general. The other thing I think is interesting is, what does this do to the moral compass of our country? I mean, is it not a big deal and it's like, okay, this is fun? Or is it a way to continue the decay of our country? Because I believe our moral compass is kind of out of whack as it is right now. And will this gambling change things? And here's why I say this. A really good friend of mine, we grew up together, went to high school together, played sports together. He is actually a pit boss in Las Vegas, Nevada. And he said, one of the saddest parts of my job is watching these little old ladies come in here and basically burn through their entire inheritance, their entire retirement. And he says, I'm talking of, a couple of $1 million. And he says, I want to go out and tell them the house always wins. The house always wins, but I can't because it's not my job. I have to just keep my mouth shut. But it's a sad commentary. So What kind of problems do we have with gambling in our world today? Because it can be a very addictive thing and can damage so many lives, and it's creating so many more opportunities for people to throw away their lives if they do that. And this is something that we're not going to see in a year or 2 years or maybe 5 years, but 10, 15 years down the road, this could be a detrimental impact to our society. I hope that's not the case. I hope people get it right. I hope they have some sense and some common sense about all of this. Interesting topic. We'll see where it goes. Helmets Off is now off. Text helmets to 65537. Go to all those social sites in the corner and like us because we like you. Be smart. Dial us in on your phone. And until then, we will catch you soon.